Hello and welcome to Shaping Your Future. This is a special event brought to you by IMR, the Irish Manufacturing Research, and IFORM, which is the SFI Centre for Advanced Manufacturing. My name is Phil, and it is my job, along with Sabine, Andrew, Eleni, Charlie, and Heather, who are all going to say hello and wave nice and friendly. They're lovely people. We've just been having a chat before this, solving our technical difficulties before you're welcome, so that there is nothing that could possibly go wrong in this chat, which has been designed to really give you an introduction to what life and work in manufacturing is like in Ireland and where you can go from it. You know, a smart future is one where you're informed and where you know what the options are available to you. The whole idea of today is a chat. We're going to have a chat with these five nice people to figure out what it is that they do day to day, how they got to where they are, where they're going next, and how you could potentially do it, but in a really honest way. We don't want to just, do the commercial and have people like flying off in different directions or, jet skiing to work and like everything's amazing. We want to get a real honest reflection of what it is, what it's like, and how you can make a difference in the world, and by being informed and knowing what it's like. So in a traditional university challenge type style, we thought we might introduce everybody to say who they are and what they're working on. Sabine, would you start, please?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabine. I'm a research engineer in robotics in IMR.
Cool. Andrew?
Hi, my name is Andrew, and I'm a 3D printing engineer and researcher at IFORM and UCD.
Great. Charlie?
Hey, I'm Charlie, and I'm working with augmented and virtual reality.
Nice. Eleni?
Hi, everyone. I'm Eleni. I'm working in IFORM, and I work with data science and machine learning project.
Great. And Heather?
Hi everyone, my name is Heather. So I used to work in iForm with Andrew on 3D printing, and now I'm in industry researching coatings for medical devices.
Fantastic. So these are people are going to tell you a little bit about their jobs and also in what they do in terms of obviously in industry, but in academia. And that means basically working in research or still studying in universities as well. IMR, Irish Manufacturing Research, it's a leading research and technology organization based in Ireland. And the idea is to work in research, consultancy, i.e. advising people on how to work in manufacturing, and then also training. They want to help people like early adopters get on board with like the latest technology and then become leaders in Ireland, so that Ireland becomes a center for kind of excellence in manufacturing. IFORM is an SFI Research Centre for Advanced Manufacturing. And SFI means Science Foundation Ireland. They are like the funding body of where the chief scientific officer is, but they also they fund a lot of projects within Ireland and research and training in order to get Ireland to the smart economy and smart future that we're looking for. IFORM's mission is to kind of again shape the future of manufacturing in Ireland, but through like kind of high impact stuff, as in stuff that will really make a difference in a lot of people's lives, not only in Ireland, but across the world. And to do this also through digital applications, so getting digital technology into manufacturing so that people can have so there'll be a national pool of expertise in Ireland in material science, engineering, data analytics, and kind of cognitive stuff. And we're going to talk to everyone here to kind of see, how they fit into that in terms of their own experiences, but again, give you that honest kind of feedback. I'm going to go to say, let's have a go. Charlie, we're going to go with you first. I don't know why I picked you, but there you are. You're in an orange jumper. It's just what my eye went back. I'm going to go to. And you've also drawn on the wall. I like that you've a whiteboard in your room. I mean, do you ever stop work? Like even sleep? Are you still kind of like tapping away?
Pretty much. I don't know. A lot of people make fun of me for a whiteboard in my room. But I don't know. I've had it for years. I actually got it when I was like fairly young.
Right. Making notes and like I always have ideas sometimes, and I'll remember that in the morning, and then I completely forget later on. What was that great idea? It was going to change the world. What exactly do you do? I suppose is the easiest thing to start with.
Yeah, so I work with augmented and virtual reality, or what most people call it, just AR VR. So within IMR, I work with a variety of companies, I guess, and we help them adopt the latest devices in AR VR. So I guess most of my work is actually doing kind of software development for those devices, for those companies to implement it with their workflows.
Okay, and when you say software development, does that mean that you're like every day you're kind of coding, or do you have like a piece of hardware that you're trying to get to work? What exactly is that?
Yeah, it's a lot of coding, I guess, but I guess I do enjoy the 3D side of things as well. So there is some like optimizing 3D, but again, this is all kind of behind a computer. But there's I do work with a lot of like devices kind of out of reach at the moment, but like VR headsets or like AR glasses and stuff. And so you'd kind of like you'd view the content on those.
Okay, so like so AR augmented reality is the one like you have like with Pokemon Go or something. You see things like superimposed into the real world, or like you wear those glasses. What's the real kind of application of those in kind of a manufacturing context?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ones. It hasn't really been fully adopted in many places yet, so there's still a lot of experimenting to do. But the big ones are kind of like training and maintenance. So the idea is, you know, you can be hands-free and just have these kind of pair of glasses on, and over the machine you can have like augmented, annotated instructions showing you the next steps of what you have to do. So like, you know, put the screw here, do this, and you can step through the instructions without being. It's not dangerous. You can still wear a helmet and stuff like that. So it's
That's awesome. So basically, you can like get instructions live as you do it and put things in and have hands free. I'd love that obviously when cooking, so that I could like now add more. No, you've put too much in type thing.
Yeah.
But essentially the same kind of process. Savine, I might go to you next with the same kind of question, which is a very basic kind of like, what is it that you do?
So basically, I do quite a lot of different things, but I show manufacturers, so specifically Irish manufacturers, what can be done with robotics and automation, and specifically the sort of robots that are not yet fully adopted. So there's new generation of robots and all that. So I try to show them what is feasible to do and how it can be impactful for them. So that's developing demonstrators, showing them, you know, like prototypes and different technologies, but also developing tools for them to understand what really is robotics, what is suitable for them, and looking at also potential projects for them to pursue. So it's a mix of like development, programming the robots, but also talking to the customers, trying to understand their needs, and a lot of discussions and stuff like that. So it's quite varied.
So you're kind of trying to tailor a solution. So it's someone almost coming in going, we do this. How can you develop or how do we pick a robot to make this easier? And it's not obviously, is it like, it's obviously not like someone who like a robot who actually comes in, I will do this. Like there's lots of different types of robot, I suppose.
Yeah. So yeah, in manufacturing, you have mostly the robots are like arms, so robotics arms. We also work with mobile robots, but so it's really for industrial settings. And what we do is usually people will come to us saying, look, I have this problem, this challenge. Is there any way there is some scope for, or like some robots application that can be put in place? So usually it's not upon the choice of robots, but it's what comes all around. So what type of sensors are we speaking of? What type of what is the operator doing, what is the robot doing, and all the things that are around the robots and how to make it feasible for them to solve the challenge.
Okay, so you're really looking at how robots going into places where you don't want a human to be working, where it's dangerous or speed, or is there kind of a rule for like safe, what's that, safer, faster, or cheaper for robots, or is there?
Exactly. So we really look at applications or tasks that are really repetitive, that are boring, or that are dangerous, or where the operator or the human can do something better somewhere else, or use more their like brain to do something rather just to do something repetitive.
Yeah, I'm all for this, because I've often heard people say like robots are going to take my job. I'm like, great, I don't want to do my job. I would rather be doing something else, or something more challenging or creative, or anything else like that.
Yeah, in most of the projects that we work on, the robot does not completely replace the human, and the human is usually doing something else and is upskilled kind of to look after the robot as well. So it's a great, like they have to adapt to the future, and that's a great way to introduce that to them.
Cool, awesome. Thank you very much, Savine. Andrew, I'll come to you next. Also, like, I mean, you're fully branded in the background. Like, I mean, you are prepared for this. As in, just to everybody watching at home, but like, this isn't necessarily at Andrew's bedroom where he has a poster up at the background. Where are you, Andrew? And what do you do?
So yeah, I promise I didn't bring all these logos home with me. That was weird. But I'm in UCD at the moment, specifically in iForm's lab. So we have a demo lab here in the science building in UCD where we have a robot arm, like Sabine was talking about. We have a few 3D printers, and this is where we bring companies or people that we want to work with to show them what we do. That's kind
Good.
of,
I mean, like, do you get many people coming into you to kind of, like, when you say show what you can do you get work with companies as well as kind of people? What kind of work are you looking at the moment?
yeah, so because iForm is focused on manufacturing, actually most of the projects that we do would be with a company of some kind, whether it's a really small company or a huge multinational. They're everything from medical devices to parts for boats, which is one of the newest projects we're working on. So there's a huge parts that we would make, and generally it comes from, this is how we made it before, but we want you to help us make it cheaper, stronger, lighter, something like that. And then we'll work over a few months or maybe a few years, and at the other end we get something that's better than what we started with.
So you're trying to obviously make the manufacturing process, like you say, cheaper. I suppose more environmentally friendly as well, and like not waste as much material. And I know you're kind of big into 3D printing as well. I suppose is that kind of the crux of what of all of these things together? Is like you've so many requirements and trying to do the best kind of job as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So everything that we get from a company would have a list of requirements. It needs to be this strong and it needs to weigh less than this amount or whatever the requirements are. And then we will look at all our different systems. So it might be a 3D printing system or it might be a CNC system. There's a million other technologies that we could potentially use, but we tend to find in the last few years that 3D printing is really good for a lot of different things. So even though we're a manufacturing center, we do a lot of 3D printing.
So that could be the tagline for it. 3D printing is good at a lot of things. I mean, if selling that isn't good. You said CNC. Just for me, into what is that?
Oh, so it stands for computer numerical control.
Okay.
And that basically just means that if anybody has seen a laser cutter or one of these machines that would maybe cut a part out of a block of wood, they're all referred to as CNC machines or milling machines. Okay. And that would be considered the traditional way of making a lot of parts. So you start with a big block of, say, wood or metal, and then you would cut away all the material you don't want, and you're left with the part. But that's the opposite of 3D printing. So 3D printing, you start with nothing, and then you build up to what you want. And what you generally find is when you 3D print something, you've no waste or very, very little waste. Whereas you start with more than you want, you lose a lot of material. So for the environment, it's a lot better.
Right. Okay. It's nice to see, like, I mean, as opposed to just being, and like, I know with 3D printing, one of the things I even were very excited about is that you can 3D print with a lot of different things. Like obviously plastic, I've seen bricks and mortar, and even obviously those chocolate printers, which I'm hoping to invest in a research. I'm going to apply for some research grant. Like, does it taste better if you eat a lot of it, as opposed to 3D printing? I don't know if it'll be funded, but Heather, I'm going to come to you now. Like, you're called a former iFormer because you used to. Does that make you a iFormer, a reformer? I don't know. You work for Hollister. Who are Hollister and what do you do there?
So Hollister are a medical device company and they have a couple of different sites globally, but they have one here in Ballina, and we have a continence care research centre here. So essentially the medical device we make are urinary catheters. So I don't know if anyone's ever been in hospital before, but they might have had to have a catheter and they're called indwelling. So what we make are catheters that you can take home. So it means that you can, you have your independence back. A lot of people with spinal cord injuries can use these at home. You can be out and about. It just kind of gives some independence back to people.
When you said like take it home, originally I was like, I don't necessarily want that as a souvenir from my trip to hospital. There's a lot of kind of yeah, true. There's a lot of work with that, but plastics, I suppose, is the best thing. What kind of how, with plastic, is there a lot of kind of like, plastic is obviously an environmental question like, around it, but it's really kind of also potentially has a lower impact than making something that is more robust but then thrown away. How do you work with plastics at Hollister?
And so we are constantly researching new plastics and that'll have, you know, a better footprint. A lot of our base materials now are coming from kind of more environmentally friendly sources. A lot of our projects are focused now on the end life of our plastic. Where is it going? What's going to happen? So we have a lot of funding going into that. But kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis will really be more about the coating on the plastic. So we have our catheters, and we want to make sure the coating is biocompatible, so it doesn't hurt the person. And we also want to make sure that it is sterile and there's nothing growing on it. Obviously, you don't want any bacteria, viruses, microorganisms, that kind of thing. So in our team, we have a group of different scientists. So I studied chemistry, but we have, you know, we have engineers, we have physicists, loads of different people. And what we're looking at essentially is new and emerging technologies. So what can we pull in that's the new kind of research, and how can we apply that to new devices?
Cool. I think that's when you talk about plastic there, it's very interesting. It's often much maligned group of materials. It's plastic is thousands of different materials. Can't live with it, can't live without it, kind of thing. But you know, plastic is a wonderfully malleable sort of like substance, I suppose, or substances that you can use. And I think what was really interesting for me, for you were talking about, was thinking about end of life. Like a lot of people watching now, wouldn't you think about that you go into a job just to make something to do a job, but really what you're looking is you're designing the project, how to get the materials in order to make it, how it will be useful, how it will interact, but then also how it will be either upcycled, recycled, broken down, or anything else. So there's a whole design process that, you know, getting into manufacturing you may not be aware of, and there's multiple different points at that process that you can be, even in quality control, and what happens going towards the future of that. And the future of manufacturing is Eleni. I'm coming to you next, because you're studying, and the way that you were described is you're a big math head in the bio, and that you love it. Tell me about your love of maths and what you do with it.
So yeah, I had a huge love of maths as a child. I knew I wanted to be a mathematician at a very young age, and that's what I became. But during my studies, I came in touch with more applied aspects of math. So I came in contact with control theory, computer science, and that's when I decided that for my further studies, for my master's and my PhD, I wanted to go to a more applied route. And everything came kind of naturally. So I started doing my master's in control theory, and I realized that we can apply control theory is basically study of applying mathematical ideas to make engineering and machines and different systems work the way you want them to. So getting that idea and then hearing about machine learning and artificial intelligence, all of that made me want to do something that has real life applications. And I believe that additive manufacturing, 3D printing is really the future of manufacturing. So it was really a one-way street after that. Everything came into perfect place and I got to manage, all right? So yeah, basically what I do is study algorithms and mathematical methods to make the printer smarter. I'm specifically focusing on something called reinforcement learning, where you have the printer learn from data from past experiences. So it tries to learn itself how to make better decisions. So that's where we're at the moment. We're studying these methods, and we have a 3D printer in the lab, which we will attach sensors to and use the data from the printer to teach the printer how to fix itself or stop itself if the printer wants.
So you've got, like, I love the way you were kind of getting into that, like you're kind of saying it's it learns as it goes along, artificial. And obviously we've talked about with robotics and things, but to make a process easier, you need, you know, that computing power to actually obviously figure out what we might not see, obviously, as well, or be aware of these kind of patterns as well. But that also that, you know, that iterative process, I can totally say that, which gets, you know, better and better and better over time, that helps us kind of develop then the next machine that will be better, that will then also continue to learn better and better. It's data though. I mean, how much? Like, I mean, surely you're also looking with huge data sets and kind of massive amounts of thing and complexity as well. How do you kind of interact with the computer? How do you make it learn? How do you write something that actually allows a computer to learn?
So far, we haven't actually gotten to work with the actual printer. We're more working on simulated systems with simulated data. So the main idea is every time the printer or whatever our agent is gets a reward based on the of the previous decision. So based on that reward, which comes from all the data, all the measurements we got from the environment, all the impact of the previous decisions. Based on that, it gets a reward or a penalty, or a cost, and with that, it decides that maybe what I did wasn't such a good idea, or maybe what I did was a very good idea, so I'll do it again. And that's how it explores, learns, keeps the memory of what it already knows, and it becomes smarter and smarter.
So it's kind of like how we learn, like if we get, or like our dog or anything else, you're like, if you do something right, you get a treat. Or if you do something wrong, you don't get a treat or whatever. So it is that kind of like iterative process that goes through. It's nice to see that also computers learn in the same way that I do, that my wife will give me a biscuit whenever I clean something properly, which is why I'm quite skinny, and because I don't get a lot of biscuits. Sabine, I'm going to come back to you and just kind of talk to you a little bit about your journey and everyone, of course, how you got to where you are right now. Because the part of the bio that we got when I was given to you was works with industrial robots from France. It was quite succinct in that. So how did you come from France to be here to work with robots?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So yeah, obviously I'm from France. The accent and all.
Unless you're putting it on all the time, which I mean,
yeah, it would be quite tiring to do. Yeah. No, so I studied, like in high school, we had this introduction to engineering, and that was like the coolest kind of course because you had to, like, you had projects where you would develop a maze solving robots and all that. And so I didn't really know what I wanted to do after high school. So I was interested in really all that kind of engineering, but didn't really know exactly what. So I entered engineering school, which had like a lot of different fields, from electricity to energy to robotics and all that. And then after that, like I did some project with robots involved, and I really enjoyed it. So I specialized in robotics. And then I was like, okay, let's try to see if there's a job for me somewhere, maybe in Ireland. That sounds like fun. So I looked it up, and so I found this amazing job in IMR, and so that's what made me go to Ireland for it.
Awesome. I mean,
yeah,
it's working out so far. I mean, that's good. Like a nice journey. And I was the similar time at your age. I when I was young, I didn't know exactly. Well, I knew I liked taking things apart and kind of putting them back together. And I went to physics and then mechanical engineering for my postgraduate. So I mean, not knowing in secondary school what you want to do is perfectly fine and normal and possibly bad, because a lot of the jobs that you're going to end up working in don't either exist yet or haven't been created. So science, technology, engineering, and maths provide you with a really strong basis to be able to adapt and go into lots of different areas. Charlie, did you know when you were in secondary school exactly what you wanted to be and where you were going? And how did you get to where you are now?
I thought I did.
Right. Okay.
But, yeah, I guess when I was a kid, I played a lot of video games. So throughout secondary school, I was like, I want to make video games. So I went to college to study how to do it. And then while I was at college, the college gave us access to like VR headsets to make some games. And then pretty much making AR and VR applications is very similar to making video games. So once it came to like looking for a job, there's a lot of opportunities around for develop these applications for companies. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Awesome. I mean, I presume you still play a lot of video games at this stage.
Well, I try not to, but yeah, I do.
And that whiteboard everybody is watching is actually for writing down either cheats or code or maps of approaches and strategies of how to grind through particular different ways. secrets behind the engineer's door, I think is the current word. Andrew, again, did you know where you were going when you were in secondary school?
My parents like to make jokes about this because when I was probably 7 or 8, so primary school, I was so obsessed with Lego that people used to just be like, oh yeah, you know, Lego is great and you'll become an engineer. And so I just became obsessed with this thing like, oh, if I become an engineer, I'll get to play with Lego. So I just down that route. And originally I wanted to be an aerospace engineer so I could make planes because I love planes as well. But everything kind of slowly changed from one to the other. I started engineering in UCD after leaving cert. And when you go into first year, they kind of let you try everything because you don't pick what specific type of engineering you want to do. So I went in, said, I want to make planes. I want to do all these mechanical engineering things. Quickly learned that actually I kind of prefer medical and materials and that kind of thing. And it was just through literally trying it and deciding, no, I don't like this anymore. I'm going to switch. And I started doing biomedical engineering instead. So that's the engineering of kind of implants for people or parts that are used in hospitals and that kind of thing. And then after I finished my degree, I started working in a research lab in UCD and changed my mind again and decided actually maybe I don't want to just do medical, I want to do manufacturing because then I can make parts for planes and parts for medicine and parts for every other type of engineering. It's way more broad. So that's kind of where I settled in. So I'm materials and manufacturing at the moment.
You're the material guy, loving it. I mean, like the fact that you change your mind so many times, and also the Lego reference, which clearly behind me, like I am also obsessed with Lego. Yeah. So if anyone wants to talk to me about Lego, I'm just all day. But the fact for me that you wanted to change your mind and were able to, I think, is the most glorious thing because I am what I would call, it relates to me because I'm what's called, I call myself like a research magpie, is where like I see, ooh, something shiny, and then, oh, something shiny over here. So I keep changing my mind all the time, but I have, because I did physics and engineering, I have the grounding to be able to move into different ways. I think it's great to be able to have that. Heather, did you find that how did you find your way into kind of where you are in Hollister now? And did you know as well what you wanted to be when you were whatever height, young age?
No, not at all. I think I was a bit of a research magpie myself. I think I wanted to be a guard in the army, a doctor. I wanted to be everything. But essentially in secondary school, I liked science. So I started studying chemistry in DIT, which is now TUD.
Yeah.
And it was actually medicinal chemistry. So I thought I'd be heading out into pharmaceutical sciences, that kind of thing. But I did some internships then in coating development over in Germany. It was for automotive coatings. Yeah, so I was looking at kind of anti-corrosion coatings, how to stop your car from rusting, and I just kind of got introduced to this whole world of coatings essentially. And yeah, I haven't really looked back since. It's a bit of a blip. I started printing for a while with Andrew, which is also quite fun.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you what's called? Could be like, are you a coating anorak? Like, is that I don't know if that's like, because I double coated one. Like, I mean, obviously the greatest thing I've ever come up with, but
no, I just have loads of interest. So like I love chemistry, I love material science. I think coatings are cool, and surfaces, interfaces, and then obviously 3D printing polymers is also deadly. So it's hard to make up your mind sometimes, but you just kind of keep going.
that's I just got to cut back to something, because it's something that people watching might not really know about, is kind of the internship route, or what happens in when you study is that you go out to spend time in companies when you actually do your degree potentially, and even if you're a graduate. Just talk to us a little bit about, just when you said you spent time in Germany.
Oh yeah, so actually as in third year of my degree, DIT offered you either an internship or an Erasmus. So both are really valuable. You get to go out either to a university, so that's your Erasmus, or an internship. So I was told if I took my internship, I'd get paid. So I did that instead. Money's always good.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up in a company called Henkel out in Dusseldorf, and it was really cool. It was my first time being introduced to R&D, and you have a bit of independence, you learn a lot. And I ended up working with that same company then a bit after my degree. And actually one of the guys that works here in Hollister in Ballina, was from Germany as well. So Ireland's a small place. You kind of, you know, the world of chemistry, material science, wherever you end up, you can really, yeah, you kind of know each other.
It's good. And you could like, you can pull in, but you can also like go anywhere from here, which is really nice, and you get that opportunities to see. Eleni, you came obviously from Greece origin. You studied maths in Greece. How did you end up studying maths, and also then coming from Greece over to where you are now?
So, as I said before, studying maths was kind of a one-way street for me. I didn't really want to do anything else. I did contemplate engineering and architecture as well, but I thought, since maths is your passion, you should study that first, and then maybe you can combine it with other fields. So, turns out for the best anyway. And I did both my undergrad and my master's back home, and I did also spend a semester abroad in Germany, coincidentally together. I did an Erasmus though, because internship wasn't really a thing for maths, I guess. So I spent a semester in Stuttgart and realized that I really like being abroad. Not that I don't love Greece, I actually adore Greece. It's a place to live. But I do like being in a multicultural environment, learning from other people, and coming in touch with different people from different backgrounds. So when I was looking for my PhD, I was looking mostly for German-speaking or English-speaking countries, and I was doing a very broad search. And when I came across this particular position, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is very interesting. And I just accepted the offer straight away.
That's fantastic, and it's nice to know that you had those options available. I love the fact that how you described what you were looking was something multicultural, and it's one of the things that most appeals to me about science, technology, engineering, and maths is that you get to meet people from everywhere, and no matter what gender you are, what sexuality you are, what nationality you are, whatever, there is a place for you somewhere in STEM for what to do, what you love, and to make a difference in your life and potentially the world's. It is something that you really could see. When you came obviously from Greece to Ireland, what did you notice? Did you notice any major differences, or what was different for you, or what did you like?
Probably the weather was the biggest change.
I'd imagine, so small differences.
But surprisingly, I found that the people here are very similar to the people in Greece. Like, I would say Greece, from what I hear from other people, is like famous for being friendly and warm and whatever. And when I came over here, I realized that Irish people are actually very much like that as well. And I found it very interesting. I remember striking moment my first 2 days here. I was walking around across the street in Maynooth, and just a person I didn't know looked up and said, "Good morning," which wouldn't happen that often anywhere else in the world. I don't know. It was a very small moment that just made me feel like this is a place I can stay for a few years.
Good, and we hope you do. And it is a place that could stay. And sometimes Irish people aren't great at selling themselves, because they're like, "Oh, stop blowing smoke at yourself here now. Don't be doing that." But funnily enough, Ireland does incredibly well. In fact, punches well above its weight internationally across every nearly sector in terms of science, particularly in areas of manufacturing, computational data analytics, immunology, a lot of really kind of hard-hitting stuff. And a lot of companies come here obviously for tax breaks. We're not going to say that's not true, but they also come here for the talent pool that we're able to provide and the way that we work in teams. It's been analysed that actually the way that people in Ireland tend to work, because we're quite open, means that we can work in teams really, really well. And we can work with lots of different types of people, but also lots of different types of technology. Sabine, so I've just looked at the questions that came in here that we got as part of our list. And one of the ones was like, I'm just talking about working with different people. They want to know, what was the most interesting robot that you've worked with? I mean, as interesting, maybe, does that have a personality, or what it could do? And what are you working on right now?
So our work and my team, the team I'm working with, I was going to say we play with, but no, we work with.
No, you can say that. That's fine.
Yeah, different kind of robots from different brands, different types. The one that I prefer is called It's called a collaborative robot. So it's a type of robot. It's not from a specific brand, but basically they have sensors inside the robot's arm, and they can stop whenever it touches something else. So it's made to be like working side to side with someone in a safe way. And the thing is with those robots is that you can also, they are made to be really easy to use. So you can just grab it and teach it by showing where you want it to be. So it means that you can quickly like program the robot to do something really nice in a few minutes.
So kind of like a plug and play. It'll almost fairly quickly jump up.
Yeah.
Do they have, one of the other questions that we were asking, like, do you give them names and do they have personalities?
Like personalities would be quite ethical challenge. But at the start I was giving them names. So we had Robert, Roberta, Robbie. So you can see
I can see a theme happening here. Yeah. Go on.
But at the end, I lost track, and it's like we had too many babies. We can't remember whose name is which and all that. But no, we have different sizes as well. So there is this kind of feeling as well with when you work with smaller robots that are a bit cuter than huge industrial robots. Yeah. So I think it's human, like it's the human feeling. You can't really block or prevent any of those attachments, I guess.
No, and in fairness, all I would like you to do is to build Wally and have him here, like just and just make him do noises and those eyes all the time. That would be delighted with that if that could happen. Charlie, back to you now. Even with Wally and video games and other stuff, some of the students wanted to know kind of to find actually some of the actual stuff that you've created using virtual reality. And one of the other questions was, are there applications for what you do for people who either live on their own so that they can have virtual friends, or even for stuff like people who have either suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia that can identify and use augmented reality to, so like that's actually someone you know. What are this is? Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a lot there. Regarding the virtual reality and meetings in VR, it's becoming really popular lately. Like especially with lockdown, so you just want to meet your friends, and maybe this format here just through Zoom and like 2D cameras, it's just not as enough. So yeah, like one example is I used to go to this like VR, like an actual tech meetup in Dublin, and I used to talk there. But now they're actually hosted in VR, and it's kind of cool because like we'd be talking, we have avatars that look like ourselves, and we chat to each other. It's just like the same, and you've got the spatial sound, so you can get a drop off of your voice, how close you are. So you actually walk up to groups to talk to each other. But then like 1 minute you can just go, hey, do you just want to go paintballing? And it's just like, yeah, sure. And then we all go to this virtual paintball place and you run around. I actually remember when I did it, I set up the sitting room and I just like cleared out the couches, so I was able to like run around. So yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff. There's also like a lot of famous singers and artists have hosted VR concerts and stuff, but it's different because you actually get to walk around with your friends in the space. Some people think it might sound silly, but you really do have to try it.
I have tried. I tried a HoloLens from Microsoft in terms of that kind of stuff, where we got, and you like, obviously you have the glasses in front of you and you look, and things can jump out of the wall at you at different stuff as well, which can be a bit of a shock. But in terms of that kind of, I suppose, as opposed to outside of gaming or that kind of experience, are there kind of more kind of I suppose helping technology? What kind of technology would we call it? Like assistive technology that can come out of AR?
Yeah, definitely. Well, AR is probably most more popular with assistant kind of stuff. There is they've got like a lot of AR headsets have like LiDAR sensors and stuff. So it's really easy or it's a lot easier to create holograms of people. So the sensor can pick up on get 3D renders of people, and it can cut out your background and pass you through as a hologram to somebody else's AR glasses. So it looks like they're standing in real time in the room with you. And so, yeah, it's very close to being like sitting in a sitting room together. So I guess that's not fully there yet. Like it's quite expensive and stuff to do, but I could see that being a use case for that in the future.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like everything is always crazy expensive when it first comes out, and
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
goes on. Plus, we're talking these videos are going out to the next sets of technologists, engineers, mathematicians, and scientists who will create all of that. I mean, knowing what's possible is possibly knowing what's possible is possible. I mean, it was possibly uh, the most kind of like it's like a goal that you want to get towards. You like I'd love to create that or do that, and I hate when people only talk about the dream big and do that, but you have to pair that with the practicality of how do you actually get there. And I think that's what we're trying to do by talking to you lovely people, is to actually find out how you got to where you are now, and where you can kind of go next, because that's why the whole point of this is, and that it is accessible and something you can do. Eleni, I mean, you obviously, like I said, you chose your particular line of work. Did you ever consider obviously doing something else? I mean, can you talk a little bit more about kind of just the data that you work with as well in general?
So when I was very, very young, I did consider other jobs as much as I could do. So I was a rock star, I wanted to be a dancer, I wanted to be a hairdresser, an astronaut. I went through a lot of different dreams, I suppose, but very early on, I just settled on maths, as I said. But close to getting into college, again, I had like a little period of doubt whether I wanted to do math, physics, or engineering. Now, as far as what I do with data, basically the main things we need to be cautious of when it comes to data from manufacturing is they're not really easy to come by, because a print can take a long time to be complete. It can be expensive depending on the machine or the materials. So we need to be really precious of the data that we get, and make sure to store them, back them up, keep them safe, encrypt them, all that stuff. They may be subject to confidentiality depending on if it's from an industry project or a machine that has some kind of confidentiality issues from the manufacturer. So the main thing is being precious about the data, cleaning it up, as we say, which means bringing them into a format that we can use them and that our algorithm will recognize them. And making sure that we don't lose them, or someone hacks us and gets data that they're not supposed to have.
Yeah, and I mean that's like, I mean, because what you're doing is obviously incredibly valuable, that can be like replicated, and so like, so there is kind of like a lot of not only funding that goes into, but a lot of corporate kind of interest in what you're doing. Heather, you're working in the corporate world at the moment. What's coming down the line in terms of, or is there like, and obviously I know we talked about IP, which is intellectual property. We're not looking for the secrets of everything, but in terms of what do you think medical manufacturing is going to look like in 10, 15 years? Like just off the top of your head kind of thing.
Well, I think manufacturing in Ireland, especially medical devices, is quite exciting. So it's constantly changing. It's going to be very personalized medical devices. So this is where 3D printing is kind of coming in, especially for what Andrew's doing as well. You know, we're going to have things to suit our needs more. You know, 3D printing is all about taking a scan, like an MRI or a CT scan, and physically making something then. So as 3D printing is kind of getting more powerful now, it's becoming faster, you know, it's going to be incorporated much more into manufacturing, and we'll have much more personalized devices.
Okay, so like personalized medicine. So instead of like when you get what drugs, instead of having a medicine that will, you know, be a general for everybody, you'll have a specific drug that is particular for you and your biochemistry.
Yeah.
You'll have
One place you see a lot is your hearing aids. So there, a lot of them are 3D printed already, just to kind of suit, you know, your particular ear. Yeah.
And that's kind of like really useful, and it makes sense. Like obviously it also goes back to kind of like when you used to have tradespeople who would be like tailors, or like they would make specifically things for you, and then we went away and went to kind of mass producing everything. But now with this technology we can still mass produce but also have a tailoring process incorporated into that, and I think that's exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah. It's one of the other questions that I am delighted with was that, can you 3D print a new body part that you could use, that could be put like as in like at a new ear or a new kind of something, and then also make it glow in the dark? please?
Yeah, so you can definitely 3D print body parts now. Bioprinting came out, I think, about 2003, and it's coming along in leaps and bounds. In terms of glowing in the dark, I don't know if that's there yet, but science, it can definitely possibly be developed. I know you could definitely print prosthetic to have that glow in the dark, but in terms of living tissue, living organs, I think they might just look like normal tissue and normal organs for the moment.
Okay, I mean, I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, like, surely, like, the different things. Like, I mean, like, when I was in school, I was like, oh, I need new ears. No, stop, or my nose. I'd be like, please stop. Like, I'm gonna get new ones first. So I mean, like, you could have, like, go into a shop and go, I'll have those arms, and I'll put. I mean, like, you could. It'd be amazing in some ways. Also, a little bit scary. But it's kind of the joy that comes in, is like the possibilities. And I want to ask kind of everybody. We're going to come into the end of the session now, and what I'd love to find out, like I said, we wanted to be honest and not just kind of always like, we really had an honest interaction, what you do, kind of like, three things, I suppose, from everybody. And what I'd like to know is kind of like, what's the best thing about your job? What kind of challenges, or what's not the best, what's the worst thing about your job? Or even that kind of like, what do you find difficult? It might be even how we're working now. And, you know, what's your day-to-day like, you know, now, in kind of as a real kind of thing. And obviously that can be before COVID, in the begone times, when before COVID. What was it like then, and what's it like now? Charlie, I might come to you first with this. So it's kind of asking, you know, best bits about your job, what are the challenging bits, and what's your day-to-day like?
Yeah. Well, the best bit has to be just getting to work with like the latest devices. There's always so much new stuff coming out in AR, VR, and it's just cool to be able to get on the hands, like, as soon as it comes out, or when it's really relatively new. The hard thing about the job is probably working with those devices. It's kind of like it's a running joke, kind of like, if you're doing programming or development, it's just like every minute you're just Googling to find out, oh, how do I fix this problem? But it's like when you work with these like new devices coming out from startup companies and stuff, there's just nothing on Google like how to solve your problems. So that's probably the toughest. A day to day, I guess, yeah, like right now, it's a lot behind a computer screen. So if you have hobbies, you probably want to do some sort of outdoor hobbies. But I guess a lot of my time would be development software and stuff like that. Typically before COVID, it would be visiting company sites and like seeing how their processes work, like on factory floors or on site, and seeing how we can incorporate the software for these devices to be used there in the most like non-intrusive way. So I guess that's kind of how it is.
Cool. I love it. The challenge, obviously, we're scientists, engineers, mathematicians. I think the good thing that you said, like, on, is no Googling bit. But when you come up with a solution to it, there is a yes.
It's it's the best
moment where you're kind of like, I have done this, yes, and walk like you're like around, like, oh yeah, I did this guy or this girl or whatever. It's amazing. Or I've done fantastic. Lady, same kind of question to you. What's the kind of the best bits, or the challenging bits, or the moments of, and what do you do day to day?
This would have to be working on real life problems, because with maths you can really just get stuck behind equations, which I love, don't get me wrong, but you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, like, what is this equation really for? So you get to actually work on something that you see and you know that it's going to make a difference in the real world. And you get to work with amazing scientists. Like, iForm has so many different scientists from so many different backgrounds, and it's incredible to interact with all of them. The hardest part would be very similar to Charlie. So getting to debug your code would be probably the worst thing about it and the most frustrating, because you can have your math worked out, your method might make sense, but your code just doesn't. And if it does compile and you get a result that makes no sense, it's even harder, because the code runs, but you don't know why it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So it can be very frustrating, and it can take a long time to figure out, and a lot of Googling, and a triumph run when you finally figure it out. As far as my day-to-day, it's not too different now. I suppose the social aspect is mostly what's missing, like having in-person meetings or sharing an office with friends. But the rest of it is kind of the same. A lot of research in literature, a lot of math and equations, writing down, and a lot of coding.
Yeah. I suppose for people who don't know about coding, for anyone who's kind of watching today, it's like a lot of time you'll have these lines of code and you'll write it down, and the debugging bit is, but when you hit run, what'll happen is that like the program will run perfectly and do what you want it to do, or it will run like you say and not have it, or you'll get these points where like there's an error somewhere in your line and you have to go off and kind of try it. And there, it's like a treasure hunt with no map and also no X. So you have to try and find. So it is a, but again, a great success at the end when you can find it. But it is something you can really personalize as well and get in depth with. And actually, like you said, Eleni, at the very start, make a difference. And that is, if times get tough sometimes in a job, and you know that when you find this out and you do this little bit of work, it'll make a difference in someone's life or in anyone's life, that can really be a great motivational factor. And working in science, technology, and maths often provides that, and that's brilliant. Eleni, you work with robots. Do you have to debug them? What's the best bit of working with in your job? What are the challenges apart from the person, a grumpy robot, or what's your day-to-day like?
So my day-to-day currently, it's really working from home on a computer. So I used to, when I started, so programming the robots, developing demonstrators and prototypes and all this. Now I'm more into in contact with the manufacturers, trying to see what they need, what are their problems, and kind of doing a bit of education also, and show all the things that we do and the problems we solve. The best bits, so when I was kind of working in the lab, and it's similar to Eleni and Charlie, it's both the good stuff and the challenging stuff, is really to create something new based on really interesting technology like robots and sensors, but then it can quickly go wrong. And the number of stuff that are broken or the things that went wrong, yeah, I prefer not to talk too much about it, but things go wrong in experiments. And yeah, what is challenging, so it's this and trying to debug the robots, and when it smashes something, it's like, okay, what have I done wrong now? So it's all safe and all, but sometimes there's been some accidents like that, but it's okay. And now, yeah, as Eleni, it's really kind of what is challenging is doing all the communication just on calls like this. I would usually go visit the manufacturers. Now it's a bit more restrictive, so it's a bit challenging.
Sure, but I mean, like, I like what you said there about, like, I mean, you know, sometimes it goes wrong. Like, I mean, it's not an experiment unless there's a chance of, if you know what's going to happen. Otherwise, it's a demonstration. So experiments can fail, and more often you'll fail like at 99% of the time until you get to the result that you want, that you try to repeat.
And the learnings from that are the most valuable. They don't want, you know, we don't want to everything to work at the first time. Well, if we can, that's the best. But knowing how to solve problems that we've faced before are the things that are really useful for manufacturers, for us, for researchers, across Ireland.
Yeah, and it's that kind of part, like we said, the design process is like, people often say failure is not an option. Failure is the only option actually to make progress, to get through to stuff. That solution might be aesthetic, it might be material based, it might be manufacturing based, it might be actually what the product delivers. Heather, you're in that kind of space of kind of in that. Best bits about your job, is it the canteen? Or is it? I mean, like, sorry, I you know, one of the things I would love about a company is a great canteen.
Yeah.
Okay.
The best bits and worst bits. So I think the best bit is, you know, hearing the testimonies from people who use the products and kind of knowing the direct impact of that on people's lives. And the most challenging bit is similar to what Sabine was saying, is just the day-to-day failures. So research is just troubleshooting, which means you're constantly failing and figuring out why and applying that. So yeah, it challenges every single day, trying to figure out what went wrong, why it went wrong, and then trying to fix it. If something went right the first time, you know, probably wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'd be like, there was a sector wrong, that didn't happen. Can I ask kind of a not a psychological question. And don't worry that it's not as dangerous or bad or scary as it sounds. Does that take the pressure off in some ways, or is it because now I know obviously there's deadlines and you need to make things work right then, but knowing that it's going to fail, a multiple amount of times, you're not kind of like going under pressure to make it perfect the first time. Is that easier in some ways or harder?
I guess it might take some of the pressure off. I mean, they do like when experiments work eventually, but
Yes.
you know, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it does make it easier. I think I kind of learned from iForm and kind of my early research career that this is quite normal. So yeah, I guess it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's that kind of you learn as you go on. I think that's one of the other things I like about science is that like you learn from people. And Elaine's talked about like working with people, and that team is really useful. I mean, like you learn from other people. You ask for it. When you were in iForm, you learned that. And I'm going to go back to Andrew now, who obviously is the brand manager for iForm because of the posters out of the background. iForm best bits. Oh, surely there's only best bits. Tell us the best bits challenges and what you do day to day, Andrew.
The sign is just attached to my back all the time.
Walking around. Yeah, okay.
Best bits for me, I'm kind of like what you said earlier about the research magpie. I would definitely be in that bracket as well, because if you're doing the same thing day in, day out, it can get a bit monotonous. Yeah. And the nice thing about research is that you be working on something one month and then the next month be on something completely different. You could be making medical implants for a company last week, and then this week they go, okay, now you have to go make a prosthetic for somebody who lost their leg or whatever it is. So there's lots of different, I don't have a specific example of that, but
they just threw that, or just make a prosthetic for someone like they casually, like it's so amazing.
Well, even if you this year alone, myself and Heather over the summer before Heather left iForm, we were doing COVID emergency relief for hospitals, so Vincent's Hospital, like that. So and that was something that we had never done before. We basically took it upon ourselves that the lab was available, and we said, okay, well, we have the equipment that can make this work, and we went and started printing these little visors that would protect the staff from things. And initially we were only doing maybe 100, and then everybody wanted them, so we had to start bulking up, and other people volunteered to help, and it just got bigger and bigger. But at the beginning of the year before COVID, all my research was on 3D printing carbon fiber for personalized prosthetics. So for people who have lost their legs. So it was completely different side of things. And now we're looking at other types of 3D printers that we can make parts on. So that's a 1 year space of time, and I've done 3 entirely different things. It keeps you entertained.
Yeah, that's glorious. I mean, for people who watching have various knowledge of what like university or college is like, or third level, like you can go into it multiple different ways through PLC courses, or you can even just develop or work in different angles yourself. But you generally do your undergrad 3 or 4 years, and then after that you can choose to do a master's, which is either research or thesis, or then you go into do a PhD. And PhDs are challenging. You get a doctor name out of it, but it's because of the blood, sweat, and tears that you put into the research that goes alongside it. You get paid to do it, but you also usually have a big project that you're working on that is kind of hopefully will work, and then you have side projects that you like explore throughout your work as well. So the good thing about it is that you end up working on things that you love or you want to make a difference in. And like you'll see, some people are nodding because they're like, yeah, because that's part of what this is about. Like we're here today to talk to you because we love what we do. Like, I say I love what I do, but the people here, I know they do because I've seen it. Science, technology, engineering, and maths provides you with options. It gives you the chance to have a foundation to go off and do lots of different things, to meet different people, to work in different countries, to work in different projects in academia, in industry, to start your own business. And like I said, there is a space for you if you want it. There are thousands of jobs in this, or even jobs that you can create yourself. I'm going to ask everybody for their final thought in a second, which is like, if you had one thing to say to everybody in the audience, what would it be? So I'm going to give them a moment to come up with something, because I didn't tell them I was asking them this. But for me, it's something that I often think about. And the biggest thing for me about science is that it allows people to see the value in themselves. through effort. And what I mean by that is by working scientifically, you have a question or a problem, you try to, think, see what will happen, and you work through the process to have an end result that will make you something cheaper, faster, safer, a difference in the world, make you richer, whatever else it is. But you see the value in yourself because I'm able to do it, and the process allows you to be able to do that. So no matter where you're from, your accessibility level, your language level, your anything, it provides a process, whether you want to make a football curve and the Magnus effect, or you want to eat something quicker, or you want to design something. It doesn't matter. Science and engineering and maths and technology allow you to do that. It is a great thing to do. Heather, I'm going to come to you for first. What's your inspiring thing to say to all of these wonderful people watching today? What is it?
Well, if you're interested in science, engineering, maths, anything like that, just don't be scared of making the wrong choice. No matter what you do, you can always just change it or apply it to something else. So there is really no wrong thing to do.
Love that. That takes the fear out of it. Like, have a go because you've got that basis. Eleni, you up next?
Well, what I would say is kind of similar to Heather's, and I may guess kind of similar to what other people would say, but don't be afraid to make the wrong choice. Don't be afraid to make the right choice. So don't be afraid to follow something that you already know you really love and you might not see an immediate application for it right now, but don't be afraid to explore, because if you really love something, you'll find a way to apply it to your life.
Yeah, and if you're doing what you're passionate about, it's not like work. It's actually what you get to enjoy it. That's fantastic. Thank you. Andrew, I'm going to go to you next.
These are all going to sound similar, aren't they?
That's okay.
I would say that if you are looking at doing a degree because you say, okay, I'll get a job out of this at the end, that's not the right reason for picking a degree. I think you should pick your degree based on what you love to do, because as Eleni and Heather both said, if you love something, it doesn't matter where you are, you'll find a way of working it in. And like Eleni's working in engineering, but she loves maths, and maths is what's pushing her forwards. And Heather loves chemistry, and I know she loves chemistry, and it's always kept her going through the different work. And I love problem solving and building things. So 3D printing is what I want to do, because you're just hacking and tinkering. You're a big nerd, you'll find stuff to do.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, and you'll also, clearly you love iForm, obviously, because of that banner always.
Yes, clearly, yeah.
I am more. It's no different. Charlie, to you, what's your moment of inspiration?
There's always a way, I guess. Like if there's a job you want to get, there's a way to get it. Like for myself, I didn't do too well in secondary school. I wasn't able to get the course I wanted, so I did a post-leaving cert course. It just took me an extra year, but it got me more experience, and then it got me to the course that I wanted, and it got me to the job I wanted, I guess.
Savage, Terry. That's great. Thank you very much. It's great to know that like you have options and there's ways to go. Sabine, this is your moment. What's your big inspirational bit?
For me, it would be more like be curious and get informed, because there's a lot of different fields of science, engineering, or whatever. There's a lot of things that you can do. And if you didn't find your passion just yet, it's somewhere out there, and you don't have to find it just now. But if you look at all the options, be curious, ask questions, get informed, I think is the best way then to figure out what you like and what you want to do.
I am delighted, because I didn't tell you I was going to do that or ask you was it, but all of you provided me with, and hopefully everybody who's watching this, like actual real inspiration, because this is something you can do, is an option, and you don't need to know. If you know exactly what you want to be in life, go get it. That's fine. But if you want to change your mind or you don't know, that's also fine as well. Thank you to Sabine, Andrew, Eleni, Charlie, and Heather for joining us today. Thank you to everybody from Loreto College, Columba College, and Trim, and Lucan Community College for joining us today as part of the main school. This is obviously going to be sent out as well, so everybody else can watch this again. But the future is up. This talk was called Shaping Your Future, and it is up to you to shape that future by watching talks like this, but also getting yourself informed and realizing there is a place for you out there and doing something that you could possibly love and make the world a better, brighter place for everything. Thank you to everybody who's joined. My name is Phil. So, and if there's anything else that you'd like to find, take a look at the Science Foundation Ireland website, obviously for multiple careers in science, technology, engineering, maths, but look at IMOR and iForm for further information, and enjoy yourself while you do it. Find out something you love. Thanks again. Sabine, Andrew, Charlie, and Heather, and we will say goodbye and hopefully see you soon on your scientific journey. See you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.